What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the new and improved live podcast of The Madness. I am one of your hosts, Rob Lange. Along with me, as always, my wonderful partner and multitasking tonight, ladies and gentlemen, so that we could do this show, Jessica Town.
We're on mom duty.
Jess is on dog mom duty like you want to believe. So you're going to hear barks and some whimpering and some crying. Just deal with it. It's going to happen, and it adds to our show. And Jess, isn't it amazing? We are finally back with like kind of our relaunch here. We're going to come to you every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And the night we come back and sports are going again. Maybe not for 5 months.
No, not for 5 months. They'll be back, but taking a very necessary hiatus right now.
Yes. What is up to? And this is what I wanted to talk about. Mustang 3651. You guys can comment on YouTube, on Facebook. It'll pop up. We'll talk to you about it if you have anything to say about us. If you like what we have to say, if you want to rip us, that's fine too. We thoroughly enjoy debating. If you want to before, you know that. So today we got an interesting show for you. All week the plan had been this was going to be the Brett Brown Swan Song show. There's our man Dives. This is one of our big The Painted Lines guys right here, Mr. Crockpot. Glad he's tuning in with us tonight. So we are
not happy about it.
Huh?
Nola's not happy about it.
No,
I don't know.
Nola's not happy at all. So we are going to talk about Brett Brown, and we're going to not only talk about the good, the bad, but how everything was handled. I think this is the one thing tonight for sure that me and Jess are going to agree on. Because there are a couple other things like the shots she took at me on Twitter today, but we'll get to that later in the show. But obviously, the world of the society and sports have come together again. And we'd be remiss if we don't talk about that here on this show. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know what's going on in the world around us. There was another shooting of a black man by a police officer. Down or up in Wisconsin. There have been protests that have led to even more deaths where people are now taking it amongst themselves to be vigilantes and going out. And literally 2 people were killed by one of these 17-year-old people who thought it was necessary. But where it ties into the sports world and why we have to talk about it is basically every professional sports league has now acted. Right now, we would be watching the Flyers as we were doing the show, but the NHL, Major League Baseball, follow the NBA and the WNBA from yesterday and are boycotting games in a stance against racial injustice. Listen, we have been Jess, me and you have always said the way we feel about this stuff. But this is the first time that I've seen in my lifetime sports really take that pedestal that they have and say enough is enough and just not show up. And I want to know your thoughts.
I thought especially the way it happened and the way it started. Yeah, Austin, I know. We want Nola and the dog version.
It's unnecessary. I'm replaced by a dog 5 minutes into our relaunch. That's great.
She's laying down now, so, positive steps forward. But I thought the way that all of this kind of developed was, the best way possible. And there were some reports last night that kind of came out of the NBA players meeting saying that some players weren't happy with the way the Bucks, kind of took it upon themselves to do it without talking to anybody first. But I honestly think I agree that they need to be united in how they move forward from here. And, them banded together is the athletes banded together is so much stronger than each one of them kind of doing their own thing. And I think that that's how there's going to be real change really sparked from this. But I think the way that the Bucks did it, especially because it is local to their region of their market, and the fact that all the cameras were rolling, ready to go to watch the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, possibly, win that matchup and be able to move on to the next round. I think that the way that they did it, because the entire broadcast had to stop and only talk about that. There was no masking it. There was no kind of brushing it to the side. It was nationally televised, and it had to be talked about right then and there. And I thought that was the best way to kind of get that ball rolling. And then from there, once it came out right after that, that they were, not going to leave the locker room until they talked to the Attorney General of Wisconsin, I thought that was amazing. I also thought it was amazing that they would essentially be like, yeah, we'll forfeit. And I think obviously it's great. Like, you're the number one seed. Obviously you have the reigning MVP, the just named Defensive Player of the Year, and, most likely going to win this year's MVP. And, they are trying to win a championship. But the fact that they are willing to forfeit a game and take that loss to prove this point shows you, it's so much bigger than sports. But then I also thought that the Magic saying, we are not going to accept that forfeit, that just, it started in one spot and it continued to snowball through. And then the rest of the games were canceled. And then obviously the Brewers didn't play last night either. There were some comments that were made by a couple of different coaches and things like that were not ideal on the situation. But ultimately, I think everyone is essentially kind of doing the right thing now, whether it be canceling practice or changing, canceling meetings in favor of just having kind of an open discussion, which is what the Eagles did, just kind of led off their meetings by talking about this. And, they had their practice, but their meetings had nothing to do with football for the last 2 days. It's all been, about what's going on. And, now the NHL is doing it, which is, the NHL getting involved and the MLB getting involved. Those two things are, in predominantly sports that are followed by white individuals. And that's, we talked about it with the owners and things, and we've had all those discussions, but all the sports following suit and the way that they've all kind of stood united together, their owners have done so as well. And, whether that's a wishy-washy subject in a couple different levels, but this really is one of the most amazing things I think I've ever witnessed.
Yeah. And before I recant just a couple comments we've gotten here, Mustang came back in, would be okay with sports being canceled for entire 2020 if it meant the end of racism brutality. Agree 100% with that take. I also agree with James here, who says, shout out to LeBron for pushing more owners because,
Absolutely.
And before I get to LeBron and that stuff, of course, now this is our man, Austin, who was not happy. He broke the news of Giannis winning Defensive Player of the Year while we were talking about Brett Brown. And as you could tell, he is still heated.
I'm upset. I personally, I think it's a crime. It's disgusting.
Agree.
And we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So first of all, once again, the NBA is the leader in a movement, right? They led the shutdown in March. They were the first group to really get on board with it as, hey, we need to do this for public health, for public safety after things happen. If you are not paying attention, the NBA handles everything off the court better than any other league. They are always the first ones to make that right move. So kudos to them. Kudos, again, to LeBron James and to the Clippers and the Lakers, because they seem to be the groups that said, we will not get back on this court until we are told that more things are going to happen to help with change from the owners who, as we said, are predominantly members of the upper class white America.
Apparently they had some big issues in their meeting today. And the best thing that could have happened was Michael Jordan was in there able to bridge that gap between player and owner. Yeah. And apparently he was a big saving grace in some of the conversations that they were having today, because I don't know. And the thing about it is so many of these people have direct lines to members of the government at the highest level and at the lowest level. Every owner in every single sport, whether it be the NBA, the WNBA, NHL, MLB, NFL, whatever it is, all of those owners have connections that could help create positive change.
Yeah. And, here's to speak to the people who take shots at these professional athletes for doing what they're doing right now. My question to you is this: what is acceptable? Because they take a knee during the national anthem. you tell them that's not acceptable protest. The NBA forms their entire restart around social justice and Black Lives Matter and all of these movements. And you hear people say, I'm not watching that crap. I'm trying to watch sports. So that's not acceptable. Now they say, fine, we're just not going to play. And now this isn't acceptable. What you're saying to everyone is, your problem is not with what is happening in the world, which is where your problem should be. Your problem is with people standing up against it, giving a voice to the common man, okay? They are professional athletes, yes, but they also have a platform that I don't have, that you don't have, that most Americans don't have. And they're using that right. And what they're doing is getting sports like hockey, which, like you said, is more generally considered a white America sport, to get in on the act. Okay. And I tell you what, these games getting postponed really, in my opinion, saved our coach a lot of headaches, because he had made some comments that kind of could have become off a little disingenuous and a little out of touch with the world. And because the games are postponed, I think he dodged a bullet. I really do. And a bullet that should have come his way if this didn't happen.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed in those comments.
I was very disappointed. And listen, if we didn't say that we were disappointed, it's a hypocritical move on our part.
100%.
You know what I mean? So I wanted to at least get that in there. But just look at, over the last 24 hours, Doc Rivers, watching him talk, watching Robert Horry talk, watching Chris Webber talk, watching Kenny the Jet walk off the set in protest. Okay? I have said this time and time again, and I'll continue to say it. I will never know what it's like to be a black man or woman in this country. I will never know the feeling of being constantly in a state of fear, especially from those that are supposed to be protecting us. But damn it, if I'm not going to be on the right side of history and be an ally to them, which means that anything, even if, look, we all want sports back, but damn it, some things are bigger than sports. And this is one of them. This, excuse my French, this shit has to stop. And if it takes this kind of stuff to start, because look, we are still a long way away, but you're seeing bigger things happen now, and we need to continue this momentum, and not worry about public perception. The one thing that this has done for me is it has made me personally try and educate myself more on the topics, okay, and realize that silence is not good. And I'm not saying you have to be out there risking your life for your family's life, but being silent means that you're just standing with the wrong side. And I think what the professional sports leagues are doing is fantastic. I think it's excellent. I say continue to do it. If you got to cancel the seasons to get your point across, damn it, cancel the seasons. I understand, and I will stand with you.
100%. And I think that the most listening to Doc Rivers, what he said was, I mean, that gets to you. And I think the action that was taken, that if it doesn't shake you, I don't know what's wrong with you, is the WNBA and the t-shirts that some of their players wore into the arena, and with the bullet shots on the back. I mean, if you don't see that and that doesn't take your breath away in a negative way, I don't know where your head or your heart stands as a human being. If human lives are not more important to you than your sports being played, there's a bigger issue at hand. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be tackled the most, is that too many people are offended by the sports stopping. God forbid they not have their entertainment. And this is bigger than basketball. No person's life is lesser than someone else's. No. And the kinds of responses that I've seen to not only my own posts and tweets on social media, but to others, and things saying that, oh, well, and this happens every time, right? Every time a Black person gets shot by a police officer, it's always, oh, well, they were guilty. They were arrested for this. Oh, when they were, it's a 40-year-old person, and when they were 15, they, stole a donut from a donut shop. Like there's always something. But, when it was the white kid with the AR-15 that shot 2 people in Wisconsin that he obtained illegally because he's 17, then drove it across state lines, which is also illegal because he's from Illinois, and drove to Wisconsin. Then he killed 2 people. Then he was not listening to the police that told him to back up, and he still kept walking. And then he was able to leave, drive back to his home, and turn himself in the next day. They're showing pictures of him helping clean graffiti off before he drove up and murdered 2 people in cold blood. Yeah. So the fact that there is such a difference and people can't see that, and people feel the need to say, oh, well, what did that person do to deserve that? Well, no one deserves that. So nothing. I don't care what you're doing. No one deserves that measure. And at the end of the day, also, here's the thing. A lot of the big conversation that's been had is defund the police, right? So what does that mean? I personally don't think that defund the police means take all their money away and put it somewhere else. I think that there are, one of our neighbors is a police officer, and in North Philly, their precinct does not have enough money for them to all have tasers or body cams. Mm-hmm. That is a problem. Yeah. But there's plenty of money to go around for private protection for different things, and they spend it in ridiculous ways when it could be put to more efficient use. He said he hasn't had a psych eval since he left the academy. There's no kind of sensitivity training. Last year, there was a shooting where someone had barricaded themselves inside a house in North Philly, and I forget how many police officers were shot from inside the house. I mean, he was the first police officer on the scene, and he was shot at multiple times. He didn't have to undergo a psych eval after that. And it's like, what are we doing? So sometimes, I'm not saying it's ever right to go for your gun, but the fact that some police officers, if they do feel threatened in any certain way, don't have the ability to make a different decision, that's also making a bad situation worse before it even starts. Well, so there's that issue, but also let's talk about how 7 times shot in the back 7 times. There are so many other measures that you can take.
Yeah.
And 7 times.
And listen, as I'm talking, I want to get some of these. We're getting some great comments. Some are actually making me feel really good about myself. So I feel like I need to put them up there as well.
There's some really nice to you. I love it. Yeah. I love our followers and our listeners.
Yes, and Big JR, another TPL guy right there with us. But look, I'm not doing, like, I know I'm making a joke. I'm not doing this because I want people to say, oh, I'm doing this because it's the right side of things.
The right thing to do.
And what frustrates me more than anything is, in this case, what I have heard over the last few days is all these people trying to put out convicted felon, had a knife, all this stuff. Just watch the video. Just use your eyes. He's walking away. His sons are in the car. The cop grabs his shirt.
He's holding him.
And fires 7 shots into his into the back. Like, it's not like the guy's running away. It's not like he's running towards you. The fact is this: if you are not seeing what is wrong with these situations, and if you're yelling at professional athletes or whoever for protesting it, you have lost your humanity. You have lost human decency. It's plain and simple, guys. It's plain and simple. And I think that's what's so frustrating for me. And as I say this all the time, as a father raising my kids in this world and trying to put myself in the shoes of Black Americans and the conversations that they have to have is a scary, scary, scary thought. And that's where it comes to for me. Things have got to change. We have to stop with every time this happens. It seems like one of the first things people do is, well, what was that guy doing? Or what kind of record does he have?
Doesn't matter.
That matters.
Does not matter. None of that matters.
Okay. And when you want to say that systemic racism isn't real, it literally played out for you over the last 48 hours. A black man was being told to stop by a cop. He didn't stop. He continued to walk to his car. He gets shot in his back 7 times. A 17-year-old white kid with an assault rifle,
holding an assault rifle,
walks towards the cops. They tell him to stop. He doesn't stop. They let him keep walking because he said, "I'm here to help." Are you friggin' kidding me? Like, is this real life right now? Like, and I shouldn't say right now because none of this is new. None of this is new. We're just a lot further along in technology, where people are filming this stuff now. And guess what? Keep filming.
How many aren't filmed? How many haven't been filmed? How many names should be on our minds that we don't know?
And
if you need more, go read the article in the Players Tribune that Sterling Brown wrote. The cops were laughing because they were going to have some negative press because they realized he played for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah. Austin is dead on here, and this is what makes the systemic racism, right? One shot to a foot in that situation, a shot of any kind in that situation can possibly be argued to be aggressive.
Argued to be aggressive. Also,
you knew what you were doing, and it's hurtful. It's upsetting. That I feel, and not to mention, right? Everything that got started back in March with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor's killers still haven't even been arrested. George Floyd's, I don't know what's going on. It just seems like that thing just keeps getting pushed further and further back. Let's not forget, and then as you said, Jess, and it's the most eloquent thing any of us can ever say, and all the names we don't know that this is happening to. All the names we don't know.
And I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to it needs to be equal. And they need to be held to the same standard that anybody is held to. If it were me, right? And if it were me in an apartment and I shot out the apartment first at police officers, or I shot out the apartment first at anybody, and they shot back in and hit me, it doesn't matter what I did, they still are under investigation for murder.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. There's nothing else that matters. At the end of the day, the what is supposed to happen is there's supposed to be an investigation from start to end to figure out what happened there. And the fact that that's not the issue, no matter what happened in that apartment, if it was because we see opposing stories, right? It was the right house. It was the wrong house. It was because of this. It was because of that. They shot first from inside. The police shot first. At the end of the day, I don't think we sitting here right now will ever know exactly what happened. I don't think that's we will ever. But regardless, if someone is killed, those people are supposed to be under investigation. Mm-hmm. That ultimately is where the issue is, and that's where people get preferential treatment based on the color of their skin. And that's disgusting. Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to go around it. It's disgusting.
And, to tie this back into the sports world, guys like Aubrey Huff, guys like Brian Urlacher, seriously, guys, just don't say anything. If this is you cannot compare a social justice issue to what Brett Favre did playing the day after his father's death. Was it amazing? Sure it was. It is. You stop comparing these things. Stop comparing. I was sent something today about a crime that was committed from a black man killed a white father and his college student in a road rage incident. Why are you sending that to me today? Why is that even a comparative thing? Yeah, that's an awful story. And I hope the guy who committed murder goes away for life. Okay? I hope he does. And guess what? The chances are he's going to. Because he was a black man. And if I have to be that blunt about it, I will. And I'm not condoning what this guy did by saying that, but it's just the honest to God truth.
It's the difference in there was that little boy that was shot and killed by his neighbor. Did you see that? There was a little 5-year-old white boy that was shot and killed by his neighbor. They caught him within 24 hours. He is in jail. He will never see the light of day again. That was a despicable tragedy, and that is exactly how the justice system should work.
Yeah.
Well, there's all of these other young Black children that have been killed by white people, by anybody. Anybody killed, the person who killed them should be put away. That's all that needs to be. And the fact that we have to argue that, like the fact that we have to talk about that not everybody gets the same level of closure and justice for their families in that specific circumstance, it's unacceptable. And I think what should tell you how behind this country is not only have there been protests here since the beginning of June, there have been protests in countries all over the world outside of the United States embassies demanding justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and every other person who has been murdered at the hands of police and not been charged for it.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. And I just to piggyback off this last thing before we move on, we could talk about this for hours, Jess. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And unfortunately, I don't think this story's going away. I don't think this is something that we're not going to be able to or have to talk about, because the worlds are intertwined, because this is a social thing. This is not just, oh, it's politics, so why are the athletes talking? It's not any of that. Our man Austin, he loves our conversations. We appreciate it, Austin. We gotta listen we gotta get Austin back on, because he disagreed with me for like the first time ever when we did the Brett Brown show.
Oh, what a time to be alive.
What's that?
What a time to be alive.
I know, it was excellent. I was kind of taken back, but he was right, I was wrong. So what are you gonna do? Anyway, what I was gonna say, if you respond to me or anyone else with all lives matter, you are, as Malcolm Jenkins once said, you're still not listening. You're still not listening. And that is disheartening on so many levels as a human being for me, that you believe that you're trying to prove a point. But the fact is, you're saying that in response to Black Lives Matter, meaning the Black part is what bothers you.
If you truly believe that all lives matter, specifying and saying Black Lives Matter shouldn't make a difference to you. Protest
with us if you believe all lives matter. Protest with everybody. That's it. You know what I mean? That's it. Like, I saw something there. I actually put it on my Instagram page, that basically said, when things have happened, whether it was Boston Strong and the massacre, or we're all with Vegas, or, even Breast Cancer Awareness Month, there's no one on the other side saying
all cancer patients matter.
Yeah. And once again, I'm not saying you shouldn't have. I'm just saying, this is just the reality of the situation.
It's I mean, and through all this, there have been a lot of really good comparisons to saying things like that. I'm trying to think of some of them that it's like, if I'm like, I go into the doctor because I break my leg, and they're like, well, all legs matter. Thank you, but mine is broken. Like, duh. Like, it's not rocket science.
We should put all legs matter on a t-shirt. I think that should be our next t-shirt, is all legs matter. I really
that's it's like, I'm not going to look at your leg. I'm going to look at that person's leg because of the color of their skin, even though their leg is fine.
Yes.
Your leg is clearly broken, but all legs matter. So I'm going to go look at their leg.
Absolutely.
That's ultimately what this comes down to. So spare me with the all lives matter. Spare me with the what did he do to deserve to. Don't start with me, because it will not end well for you.
I am.
Your racism is showing, if that's what you're trying to say. And my favorite is listen, I am here all day, every day for people calling out other people for racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic comments on any form of social media anywhere. I am all for it. And I will continue to do it. And I hope everyone else does the same, because like you said to start this, being silent makes you complicit.
Yes, exactly. And there you go, Jess. The hashtag has started. All lives matter. We are rolling with it. And our last comment on this till we go over to the Sixers: firefighters don't go in every house in the neighborhood. They go into the one that's burning down.
They go check all the houses. All houses matter. Well, one of them is on fire.
Yes, exactly. So, speaking of houses on fire, look at that segue. Look, Austin set it up, put it on the tee. I knocked it right off. Speaking of houses on fire,
the Sixers are on fire.
The Philadelphia 76ers. Jess, our last meeting, we were very hopeful.
Optimistic.
No,
I'm always optimistic.
I mean, I was hopeful they'd win 1, maybe 2 games. But no, it was not in the cards. All the deficiencies we feared reared their ugly heads, from the coaches to the players, to guys not playing to the ability that they're needed to play to in a Tobias Harris situation or a Josh Richardson, to Brett Brown not understanding the pick and roll. All of that stuff leads to a sweep. The Sixers are out. Within 24 hours of them losing that game, the worst kept secret in the NBA happens. And Brett
Can we
Brown,
talk about that?
Oh, yes, we can.
Can we, before we get into firing Brett Brown, which was the right move, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that.
Nope.
But can we just talk about how before Game 4 started, there was a leak of a source saying that it was Brett Brown who didn't want Jimmy Butler. And I mean, it was no secret that they didn't get along, but also it had been talked about prior that Brett Brown was the one that was like, I don't know about bringing Jimmy Butler back, but if that's what it takes to win, I'm going to coach him. I'm not going to be like, it's Jimmy Butler or me. Bye. I mean, Jimmy Butler, I think, essentially was like, it's me or Brett Brown, and they picked Brett Brown. But I don't think Brett would have been like, I'm going to walk if you bring back Jimmy Butler, because I think they would have been like, bye, Brett, adios. You know what I mean? So the fact that came out and they were hounding Brett about that before the game in his pregame media availability. I mean, seriously.
Well, we're going to get to who did that. We're going to get to the people who I think did that. We're going to get to all of that. I went on, Jess, the rant that I went on when we discussed this the day after, where it was one of those out-of-body experiences where I felt like I was standing on the other side of the room watching myself, was outstanding, and I have a feeling it's coming again. But I do have to ask you, our man, Mr. Crockpot, is asking, would you allow Nola to interview for the general manager position of the 76ers?
I think if we could pick players and who gets to stay and who doesn't get to stay based on who she barks at and who she doesn't. Because she's very selective with anybody that she chooses to bark at. She's not a big barker.
Yeah.
Unless someone's outside the door, that's when she barks. But you're right. It really couldn't get much worse. We could, if someone has enough money and can buy the team in her name, I think that is essentially where it couldn't get much worse.
Yes. John Matt 25, for the love of everything that is holy in this world, I hope that you are wrong. I am praying that you are wrong. That is the last thing any of us need. But I'll say this about Miami. They built a good team around their centerpiece. Just want to put that out there. And so, with that said, let's get to Brett Brown. Jess, you have stood by me for years, and literally years I have stood on this hill by myself.
Yes.
I had to take the sad walk down from the hill.
Yep.
I understood it was time.
Mm-hmm.
The way it was done was an absolute disgusting disgrace from an inept organization.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the fact that after Burnergate, You kept all of Colangelo's cronies in the front office.
Yes.
So I wonder who's going to put out all this bad publicity about Brett as leaks on the team. Oh, I don't know. Maybe the jackasses who stood behind Colangelo, who you elected not to fire, and then give even more power and make it a community in that front office, which I think we could say the worst thing ever. Jess, you're Jess.
I mean, at the end of the day, I've had people have been, no, please, they've spent more time trying to tell me I'm wrong than worrying about important things like their team winning. So if you want to worry about some little Sixers girl over here, and that's what you're worried about instead of your team winning, enjoy. I will enjoy sitting rent-free in all of your heads, all the Instagram posts, all the awful things people have been DMing me and responding to my tweets, because they're pretty disgusting, some of the awful things that the trash Boston fans have to say. And I have friends that are Boston fans. They're not nearly as crappy individuals as some of these people. But being more worried about some girl on Twitter with a tweet that got you a little triggered in October, that you're more worried about that now instead of, I don't know, your team winning, maybe the other really good things that the team's doing right now, and you're going to worry about me?
I tell you what, between you and
I'll sit here and enjoy my time.
Between you and Austin, we do at the Painted Lines have a lot of real estate in other Eastern Conference teams' heads. Because see, I'm not even gonna no, James, I'm not going down that road with you. Okay, I'm not going down the road of
Jason Tatum is softer than soft serve ice cream on a hot day in the middle of July. His offensive game speaks for itself. We can all see that plain as day. But when you want to sit here and you want to whine and complain that you don't get the superstar calls that you deserve because you're not on the level of a James Harden, you're not on the level of a LeBron James, you are still a third-year NBA player that can't play a lick of defense and can score some points when the best defensive player in the NBA isn't on the floor. Congratulations, because if he was on the floor, you'd go 5 for 16 like you did every other matchup this year. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Jason Tatum is soft. And that's never going to change. When he stops whining after every single play, after every foul that he gets called for, after every foul when he thinks somebody may have bumped him going hard to the rim, then we can have a conversation. But until then, too soft for me. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 3 years, I have very much learned that when Jess sits back in her chair, I'm just going to be quiet until she says I'm done, because we let that one roll. We just let it roll. So Jess.
Yes.
This organization is a disgrace. Josh Harris is a jackass. I called him a coward the other day. I'm going to double down on that. Okay. He's a coward. He's a scumbag. He consistently puts other people out to take fires, such as making Elton Brand do the press conference on his own after you fire your coach of 7 years, such as making Brett Brown the scapegoat year in and year out because Sam Hinkie or you wouldn't go in front of the media by blaming, by making it as though Brett Brown was the one who made the decision to trade Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith when it's come out that it was not him. It was this whole collaborative nonsense that they put on there. Okay. And I'm at the point where I don't know if this team can succeed if morons who are more worried about building a new friggin' stadium when this goddamn country is in a COVID-19 crisis and the economy is failing and he wants the taxpayers to pay it is an absolute disgrace. And I don't care if his reason for doing that is knowing Philly won't pay and this is all about him going over to bridge to Camden, which is what he's wanted for a long, long time. But it's an abomination. That's right. I was literally saying it as this tweet came out. It was an abomination.
That was great timing.
It was unbelievable timing.
I mean, I'm shocked that they didn't just have Brett Brown do his "We fired Brett Brown" press conference himself. Yeah. That's essentially what they've been doing to him for the last 7 years.
They have made this guy the whipping boy of the organization. And does that not – look, he deserves some criticism for his coaching. No doubt about that. Criticism for his coaching is warranted and needed to happen. But he was made the whipping boy by all of these guys for 7 years. And to have him move on in this type of way is a disgrace. And that is the thing that upsets me the most. It's not that Brett Brown's fired. You knew it was going to happen. I feel bad. I love Brett Brown. I hope he gets another coaching job. I hope they actually build to his system, because we know Brett is not going to be able to adjust off of his system. That's the one thing we learned. But I'd love to see him coach a team that has shooters around, that they can run his style and see what happens. I don't know. I'm just saying I would love to see him get that opportunity. But I am not happy with the way they handled it.
I'm not happy with the way they handled it, because you're right. I absolutely don't think it was all his fault. I think his time had absolutely run out here. I think they need a new voice in that locker room. And I think that they need to see if Ben and Joel can respond better to just a new voice. Just it could be, again, we talked about this a little bit, in that the Popovich tree scares me a little bit, just because it's what they've had for so long. That's why, like, I would really prefer someone else over an Ime Udoka, but I think even maybe just having that new voice could be enough. Mm-hmm. And I just think that the team needs to be constructed better. I see, in theory, there were a lot of really good theories to how this team was built, right? Like, combat the small ball, who's going to beat you. If you're just bigger than everybody else, sure. In theory, if Furkan Korkmaz would have actually panned out, I mean, like, sure, that could have been fine, and a cheaper option to JJ Redick. The reason that they signed Al Horford in the first place was so he would walk away from Boston. That's why they gave him that money. That's why they tried to bring him here, is so he would no longer be a Boston Celtic. And the idea was that he would help Joel understand why he was able to successfully stop him, and maybe that would change and help him be able to get through the Marc Gasols and some of those other more veteran guys that had more success stopping him than anybody else. Obviously, these things did not pan out as they should have. Mm-hmm. They did not live up to the thought process behind them. Happens, right? Like, at the end of the day, I still don't think everyone wants to trade everybody and fire everyone, all over creation. Obviously, you don't trade Ben and Joel. Honestly, I don't want to trade Tobias either, because I just think they haven't been put in the best situations.
And I don't think you can. And I don't think you can trade Tobias because of the value of that contract, the amount of years, all that stuff. So listen, let me.
I think from a leadership perspective, they get so much more from him, because Ben's a quiet guy, and Joel, I mean, it's been talked about, like, Joel stepped up in this playoff series for sure, but he's more of he's kind of a goofy guy. Like, I don't think he expects to be like the big voice in the room. You know what I mean? So I think that having a guy like Tobias, who took initiative when there was the NBA hiatus and trying to keep the team together, trying to keep everybody involved and chatting and still kind of trying to build that chemistry while they're all isolated in their own homes. Like, there's a lot to be said. And we talked about this a lot last summer at some of the different, there was a Bleacher Report article that came out, and it was different GMs talking about what the max contract player is. And it's, what do you pay them for? You don't just pay them for their on the court and what they give you on the court. You pay them to be on the court leaders and off the court leaders, and be the vocal voice be the vocal person in the locker room and things like that. And that's where I think that Tobias is a lot that all around individual, in that, do I think he was non-existent in this playoff series? 100%. But also, he's the guy who smashed the absolute hell out of his head on the floor and went limp, and then got stitched up and made his way back to the floor, even though they were clearly about to be swept. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of guy who I don't mind tying up in a contract like that, because that's the kind of guy I want on my team every day of the week. Does it hamstring you a little bit, and are we a little screwed because of it? Yeah. But that's the kind of guy I want on the floor, and that's the kind of guy I want wearing Philadelphia across his chest.
Right. And before I get to that, let's get to a couple of these comments we're getting. Chris says, between Dillard today with the out for the year, Josh Harris, the Phillies bullpen, where would we be without Carter Hart?
Dead. I would be.
Right. Carter Hart saving us. It's a wonderful thing. And then this point, how am I supposed to raise my 1-year-old daughter? And I brought this up the other night. You do it because if you've had to suffer, so do they. There is no
kids suffer.
All the damn kids are going to suffer with us on that one. So
Also,
here's the thing.
can you click on that bottom comment, please, for me? Because I don't have the power to click on them. Only you do. This is my point. The Celtics fans could be doing anything else tonight.
He's a Miami fan. This guy's been on here talking about Miami all night. He thinks Miami's going to win.
I was going to say, well, that Celtics loser from a little bit ago has disappeared randomly. And it's only because half of them followed me on Instagram this week because they thought, first of all, they thought that I got a tattoo on the back of my neck of the Philly skyline, like as one of those losers that gets a championship tattoo, like before their team even gets there. You've seen those. Cowboys fans get them every year. They're all over social media consistently. But like that was one of those things. No, dumbass. Just because I love Philadelphia. Idiots. But like commenting, they're like, oh, how's that tattoo feel now? Well, it hurts because I got it yesterday, but still looks cool.
I like it, Jess. Don't worry about that.
Thank you. It's adorable. I love it very much. It did not hurt either.
Good. So listen, so going forward with the Sixers, and we'll talk about I want to just do a quick, let's talk about coaching possibilities. Let's talk about moves. I personally believe that they're going to be able to, and they will trade Al Horford. I think that everything that Elton Brand screams to me, he's going to trade Al Horford. You know, that's that whole, I'm going to talk this guy up. And to be honest with you, I think Al Horford could still be a decent enough player in another role. I just don't think that the camaraderie of him, Joel, and Ben. But let me just make this one point very clear.
Yes.
I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to continue to say it. Joel and Ben will not and should not be traded. Okay? The whole reason you get a new coach is to see if a new coach can take this thing to new heights. In a year from now, in 2 years from now, we might have to have a conversation if nothing has changed. But for right now, it's not happening, nor should it happen. See, it's this stuff.
Here's the thing.
Nuts.
I mean, if you want to trade either of these guys, you don't have a brain. And for example, Joel Embiid averaged 30 points in those 4 games against the Celtics, 1.25 blocks, 4 threes in the game over the course. And to give you some perspective, he hit 4 threes in 4 games, and Furkan Korkmaz did not hit a single shot from the floor. He had 3 points in 4 games, and they all came from free throws. Ben also had averaged about 12 rebounds a game. And you knew when Ben Simmons went down, this was going to be a little bit different because, you know, and again, I may be biased. However, correct me if I'm wrong, defensive player of the year. It's not rim blocking player of the year, correct?
Correct. Yes, that is true. I think.
Awesome. So, awesome. Great. Just to clarify, it's defensive player of the year. So Ben is the only player that can defend 1 through 5 and seamlessly do it with no drop off. People like to say Giannis can do it, but have you ever watched Giannis try to do it? It's not pretty and it doesn't look good. So when some of these high volume scorers have been guarded by Ben Simmons, Trae Young, for example, 2 for 11. LeBron, 2 for 9. Jimmy Butler, 3 for 12. Pascal Siakam, 5 for 19. 19 shots.
We drafted Furkan over Pascal.
We're not talking about that right now. Russell Westbrook went 4 for 14. Jason Tatum, 5 for 16. As I said previously, James Harden, 3 for 9. Bradley Beal, 6 for 14. First in steals per game, second in deflections, third in deflections per game, third in steals percentage, 13th in defensive win shares, and 7th in defensive plus minus. That's not to mention that he can take over a game when he chooses to by going hard to the rim. His free throw shooting has improved every single year in the league. And let's not forget, LeBron still can't shoot free throws as well as some people like to say he can. His percentage, have you seen him shoot free throws?
Horrific.
Bad. Really bad. If DeAndre Jordan can learn to shoot free throws, anything is possible in the NBA, and I firmly believe that. Also, let's talk. Everyone wants to be like, oh, well, Giannis can't shoot and he's an MVP. Yeah, Giannis can't shoot at all. Have you seen that man try to shoot jump shots or 3-pointers? It's terrible, okay? And he is about to be a 2-time MVP. So Ben, his elite passing, elite court vision, and did you see how much we missed him on the offensive and defensive glass? Also, in addition to, you know, his 15 to 20 points that he puts up every night. So once again, Spare me with the Ben's not good. Ben can't shoot 3-pointers. If all you want to talk about is 3-pointers, learn how the goddamn game of basketball works. Please, let's get some shooters, actual shooters around Ben and Joel, and let's see what happens. So your 7-foot center doesn't have to pull up from 3 because he thinks he has to do everything because no one else can hit a shot. And you wouldn't be focused on a guy who already doesn't like to shoot, only shooting 3s. Why are we only talking about 3s? We should be talking about a 12 to 15-foot jump shot. That's all that he really needs to have, and the 3-pointers will eventually come. If that's all you are hung up on, you don't understand basketball. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I just want you to know that our Celtics fan, James, has come back to tip his hat to Ben. So there you go.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
See that? So we're bringing folks together on the madness here tonight.
Sports bring people together.
Yeah. All right.
Humans love brings people together.
Jess, I have to talk to you about right after the firing. You put out a coach's list on Twitter. I don't know if you remember what your list was. You had listed.
I remember that your issue was I had Jay Wright at number 5. I know that's your issue.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and be accepting and say the reason you did that was because you don't believe he's going to leave Villanova. Is that correct? Okay, then I am flabbergasted. Here's
why. I think Jay Wright is a phenomenal leader at Villanova. I think he's done spectacular things with that program. Obviously, I mean, one of Joe's football players, he is one of the big name 2021 recruits that just committed to Nova. He's one of my sister's really good friends. Like, I've known the kid since he was in kindergarten. I will absolutely I root for Nova. I have lots of friends that go to Nova. I think Jay Wright is spectacular, and he's done wonderful, wonderful things through that program. However, he is fantastic at taking 18-year-old boys and turning them into young men. I am concerned about the ability to take grown men and make them the adults in the room and take them to that next level. And I just don't exactly that. I don't think it's an easy transition, and we've seen it work. We've seen it not work. We've seen guys like John Calipari, who is, otherworldly at Kentucky, wasn't great in the NBA. You saw what happened in Cleveland. That was a mess. And it was because he was talking to veteran players like Kevin Love, like they were college kids. And it doesn't always work out. And to me, we're at such a point right now with where we are after this series with Ben and Joel and the unrest that we're kind of teetering with. I don't think we have time for another experiment. It needs to be someone who you are confident that can take them to the next level. And I'm not saying that he couldn't. I'm just saying that I am more uneasy about a guy who has 0 NBA coaching experience. I would be more willing to give Becky Hammon that opportunity. She doesn't have head coaching experience in the NBA, but she's got enough coaching experience that I think she could be really interesting as a head coaching choice. And I would feel way more comfortable with her. I would feel way more comfortable with an Ime Udoka. If it was a perfect world, they would have fired Brett a year ago and Monty Williams would be the head coach. But my choice is Stan Van Gundy, and that's just because, yes, Brad Stevens, though, college to NBA, he was going in for a rebuild, and they knew they were rebuilding, and that is a situation where it has worked out for them so far. However, he's one that they're going to have to think about at some point over the next couple of years if they don't go to the NBA Finals this year.
Well, all right.
It's one of those. But I think it needs to be like it's a Steve Kerr, Nick Nurse kind of situation, right? They need some NBA coaching experience. I don't have the patience for an experiment that may or may not work and wasting more of Joel and Ben's young years. I personally, that's just not where I would choose to go.
So here's my counter. My counter starts with, you're right, Calipari, Rick Pitino, guys didn't make it. Calipari was young. Calipari left UMass. He came from UMass, I believe. Or no, did he come before? Yeah, he came after UMass. to go to the Nets. He left UMass. People will tell you whatever they want because there were major sanctions coming down on his ass, and he needed to get out of college. Very similar to Pete Carroll's first stint. You know, it was like you had to make a quick move. Rick Pitino, young, you know, and not only that, they're two guys that were used to, at their schools, coaching the top 5 prospects on their teams. They weren't building anything. You know what I mean? They were getting guys that were coming in that were the best players in the country playing on their rosters. Jay Wright has had to scratch and claw and build. Is he starting to get names now? Yeah. But is he getting those guys that are going to Kentucky? No. No, he's not. He's had to build.
I don't think it's a bad choice.
Right.
Just
but
not.
Here's the point. So I don't think Jay is as much of a project as others do. I understand college to pro, it's different, but I look at Jay as more comparable to the Brad Stevens experiment, say, than the Rick Pitino's. And
we're coming in for a rebuild. We need someone to come in and win now.
But here's my question to you, and this is my point, okay? Because this roster is going to have to be reconstructed somewhat. Ben and Joel are going to be here. Tobias is going to be here. But if they go in with the same bench and shooters around them, I don't care if Phil Jackson comes out of retirement. Nothing's going to change.
Someone really did actually respond to my tweet. Was like, hire Phil Jackson. I'm like, yeah, you want to call him into this dumpster fire, please?
And look, you know, people have been throwing. And that's not what James is doing. But anyone that tells me Mark Jackson, do you understand? Brett Brown was our Mark Jackson, right? Now it's
not our
listen, my whole thing is, to me, you're talking about an experiment with Jay Wright. Look, Becky Hammond would be an experiment right now. And I mean this.
Less of an experiment than Jay Wright.
Is it though? And I mean this, and you, Jess, you know me. I am in no way trying to degrade women coaches or anything.
Oh, but no, I wasn't taking it as that.
But to be the first one is going to be a major experiment. There's going to be a lot around that. So I don't know if I want that right now. I'm in agreement with you. To me, I don't know why they're not calling Stan Van Gundy. I would rather get away,
choice all the way.
Yeah, I would rather get away from Udoka and Pop and all that stuff. We talked about when we were on Party on Broad talking about this. We talked about the Ty Lue situation.
No.
And here's where I stand.
No.
Here's where I stand on Ty Lue. I am not what I would say for it. Now, would I be up in arms, hate every minute of my life? No, but I also would not be happy, if that makes sense. Because to me, Ty Lue has not proven to me that he could do it without an established superstar named
without Coach LeBron.
Yeah. So my listen, I'll be honest with you. And I said this the other night. I have no confidence that they're going to make the right hire.
No.
I have none. I have no confidence they're going to make the right hire.
They're going to F around and hand me Kenny Atkinson on a silver platter, and I'm going to jump off the closest bridge I can find.
There's been a couple people who have talked about the idea of Kenny Atkinson is not being that terrible.
No.
I can't wait till Popovich goes to the Nets and they win like 4 finals.
I don't want any coach who I've watched a video of him eating his own earwax on the bench. I will not accept that. I said this in my article that I wrote. If Ty Lue comes here, I can't take that man seriously. The first significant memory I have of watching sports as a child was Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue.
Yeah, I agree. It would be very weird.
Seriously? Someone was like, that's an asinine comment. I'm like,
no, it would be very weird. I swear to God, it would be weird. It would be weird.
I mean,
I don't know. Here's the coach you need.
How do you get past that?
I'm not even going to give you a name. The coach you need is someone who's going to hold Ben and Joe accountable, who is going to, be a guy that when accountability is needed, he's going to do it. Brett Brown's one of his best gifts was his kindness. It was also his biggest curse. And I think that led to the demise where not one player had his back after the Game 4 loss to Boston, basically. I just think that, it's the way it goes, especially after 7 years. You need someone that's going to come in here that can coach the defense on the pick and roll and can get accountability out of his stars.
Yeah. And light the fire under them a little bit. I mean, they talked about last year how
this.
I mean, that just proves no. that goes right back to no. Yeah, I can't. No, I don't. No. Oh God, I lost my train of thought. That derailed me so far. What I was going to say. What was I going to say?
We're back.
I have no idea.
I kind of agree. Listen.
What the heck was I just going to say? Oh my God.
There's part of me that agrees with this tweet or with this comment from Aaron. We could still be a couple years away, but I also think if you get the right guy in here to work with those two guys, that mental adjustment and that mental state can grow faster. I will just say that as a response to that.
I remember what I was going to say.
There you go. I need to figure it out.
Round one against the Nets last year. They came out, they looked good, and then they kind of fell apart in the second quarter. And apparently Brett Brown cursed them all out and was flipping chairs at halftime. And they were all like, yes, we love it. I need someone who's going to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's going to, because when I knew, right, when Brett Brown said, we don't have a throw the towel, flip it.
Oh my God.
Why did you? I will come do it. Yeah. Let me come into the bubble and I will flip the table. I will kick the chair. I will throw the towel and I will curse every single one of you out to get better results.
All right. Well, Jess, listen, before we end our first show back here, okay, I'm not letting you go. I will not let you off the air.
Yes.
Until we have a discussion.
About? Oh, yes.
Okay, Jess.
I have my list.
Last night, as part of the Painted Lines, we did a draft of, the best comedies, our favorite comedies of all time, sort of thing. And it's a draft. It's a draft, ladies and gentlemen. You can't just pluck whichever one you want to pluck. Okay, you go in a draft form.
I would like to know the order because then I will really grill your list.
I was 4.
Okay.
I was 4.
Out of
9.
Okay.
First Rob.
I won't do that to you on air. Maybe it.
I can tell you that Mike likes my list. Damn it, I know that for a fact.
I think your list is crap.
You are.
I'm just kidding. It's a C at best. There's some really good ones on there. It's not a bad list.
Hey.
It's not the best.
Tell me what is wrong. Well, see, here's where I think the problem is. We have a generation gap, me and you. We joke about it all the time, but I think the generation gap is very apparent right now. Dumb and Dumber is single the most quotable movie, maybe most quotable comedy of all time.
Okay.
It is that's because Mike was in the draft, so Mike says his list is better than mine.
Naturally.
So Dumb and Dumber, my God, to this day.
Was that your number one draft choice?
With the 4th overall pick?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
That's disgusting.
What should I have picked over that? You tell me what I should.
Wedding Crashers. You have Wedding Crashers here. You should have easily picked Wedding Crashers.
I have Wedding Crashers on my list. I
understand that, but the fact that was your second draft choice?
I got it in the third round.
That's shameful. Okay. The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Step Brothers easily should have been your first round draft choice. No. Is that already
gone? No, it was not gone, but I will tell you why. See, without Dumb and Dumber and Jim Carrey, you don't get these movies. He was the revolutionary that got it going. So how dare you just because you're 16 years old or however how old you are, don't know Jim Carrey well enough. That's what the problem is. You don't know Jim.
No, that's not it.
Animal House is one of the all-time classic comedy movies.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that based on everyone else's list, yours is not the best.
Oh my God. It stands apart like no other.
It doesn't.
Like no other.
It doesn't.
Old School, Wedding Crashers, Dumb and Dumber, Animal House, Happy Gilmore, Austin Powers. If see, this is where you're too.
If I'm gonna have to vote for one, I'm voting for Team Nick. That's the one that I'm riding till the end.
Nick.
Yes.
Didn't Nick? What was his? Wait a minute. Hold on.
40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Tommy Boy, Meet the Parents, Blades of Glory, The Campaign, and Half Baked.
The Campaign? Wait a minute. The Campaign should not be on any all-time comedy movie list.
This is worse than when you wanted Karsten. That's hilarious. Okay. Okay. My list. I was drafting. I was drafting from everyone's list.
You just plucked, Nate. You just plucked.
I did, but I only plucked names that were on other people's lists.
Okay. Let's hear this so I can rip it.
Also, Toy Story being on any list. Why? In what world is Toy Story a comedy? What is that?
I didn't do it.
Okay, so mine would be The 40-Year-Old Virgin. That's one of my favorite movies. I used to watch that.
It was gone before I could get it.
Almost every day in college, my freshman year. Tommy Boy is one of my top 3 favorite movies. Yet Nola pissed.
Yeah, right, Nola is not happy.
She thinks your list is crap too.
Mad that you were disappointed.
Okay, yes. Tommy Boy, one of my top 3 favorite movies. It's one of those movies that, like, anytime I see it on TV, I will turn it on. Blades of Glory, Wedding Crashers, Step Brothers, and The Hangover.
Blades of Glory is on the bottom of Will Ferrell movies.
Oh my God, Blades of Glory is one of the greatest movies ever created.
Well, now I know my
other guys. That movie, I think.
I know my list is absolutely an A because you said that nonsense. So I'm no longer upset with you. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Just make sure you vote for me.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, that's up there.
Yeah, love forgetting Sarah Marshall. Love it.
There was another one that just entered my head and left. I don't remember what it was now.
And by the way, I also was drafting from a standpoint of, okay, I got a lot of movies in a certain type of comedic drama. I got to change it up. So that's where a Friday comes in. First of all, Chris Tucker as Smokey is one of the all-time characters in movies.
Oh, believe me, I'm familiar with Friday.
Yes, great movie. But, all right, Jess, we are now officially back, aren't we? We're officially back. We want to thank the Painted Lines for giving us this opportunity to go live from our own homes so we don't have to be away from our children, Jess's dog child, my 3 actual human children. So we will be coming to you outside of scheduling conflicts every Thursday night right here on the Painted Lines YouTube channel, Facebook page, Periscope. We're coming live to you. So make sure you're subscribing. We appreciate all the chatter tonight. We want to keep building that. That was a lot of fun to have. That makes it a lot more interesting than me and just yelling at each other.
Which always keeps it interesting anyway. But
So when we come back, the basketball playoffs will look like they'll be getting back. It looks like all the sports are going to come back and play unless things change over the next 24 to 36 hours. I'm going to end with this message. Be kind to everyone. Stand up in the face of wrongful doings and wrongful acts, and let's try our hardest to do the right thing and to make sure that we are holding people accountable that are not doing the right thing. Jess, you want to end with anything?
Register to vote.
Register to vote. Agreed with that as well. So for Jess, I'm Rob. We'll see you guys next week, and until then, embrace the madness, everybody.